Alright, guys, so we're going to start off with ownership and borrowing. So here we have Bob, right? He owns a PSA 10 base set Charizard, okay? So Bob owns this Charizard, okay? It's his Charizard. So Bob wants to share his Charizard with his friend Rob. So if Bob were to give his Charizard to Rob, Bob still owns this Charizard. Rob is just borrowing the Charizard. This is essentially how we'll explain borrowing and ownership within Rust. And so each value inside Rust must have an owner. Okay, and there can only be one owner per variable, or in this case, Bob. Bob is the sole owner of this Charizard card. So just like when you're a kid and you share your toys, once you go home, you gotta take your toys back home with you. So once Bob leaves, his Charizard has to go back to him. It's as simple as that. So now we'll introduce the topic of scope. Alright guys, so pretend we have Bob and Rob here, but Bob, he is in his house. Right? Pretend this is his house. And pretend Rob's in his house. They're neighbors. Alright. So Bob cannot give his Charizard card to Rob, who's in a different house. This will explain the concept of scope. Bob is in a different scope than Rob is. They're not in the same place. So if they're not in the same place, they cannot share. If Rob were to go outside and Bob were to go outside his door, here's his door right here, they can meet each other, right? And they can hand off the card. Boop, there you go, Rob's got the card. So there you go, this is scope, and we'll go over this more in depth within the code itself, but this is just an example. Alright, so now let's look at ownership and borrowing within code itself. Alright, so here we have our main function. So we're making a new variable called s. S is going to hold a string that is mutable, so we can change this string. And we're going to set it into a function called change. So we give it a mutable reference, meaning it's a reference to the string here, right here. So it's not actually this string. It's a reference to that string. So it's borrowing that string. And we're going to be able to change it. So we stick it in there into our new function, change. So we're going to take a parameter of some string, which in this case is our mutable reference to s. So we're going to take some string, and the parameter type is going to be a mutable reference of string. So we take that string, some string, and we'll push string, we'll push the word world onto that string. And so to see what we get from this, we'll print it out. So we'll say print line, put in our braces in there, and some string. So, goodbye. We'll save, we'll run it, card will run, hello world, there we go. So as you can see, we took the mutable reference of s, put in this variable, or sorry, not variable, function, to change it. We added on world, and there we go, we got hello world. Alright, so what if we do this inside our main function? If we print line. Let's see what happens. Cargo run. Look at that. We got back hello world again. This is going to take it, and it's actually going to change it for us in both scopes. And as you can see, like in our example before, we had Rob and Bob in two different houses. So you can pretend fn main and fn change are two different houses. They're two different scopes. And so just to summarize this real quick, so pretend string s, our mutable string, is that Charizard card, right? So in order to share it with Rob, we had to make it a reference, a mutable reference. And we give it to Bob to borrow and hold, right? Once Bob is done, we give it right back. So once Rob comes out of this scope here, hits this curly, goes right back to Bob, and now it's Bob's again. So we never have to make multiple variables. We're always using the same variable, but we're making references to that variable. And we're doing this mainly for the fact that Rust does not have a garbage collector. Okay? What Rust does instead is what we just talked about, ownership and borrowing, right? This is for memory allocation and freeing memory. Languages like JavaScript and others have what's called a garbage collector. So you can make a variable, send it anywhere you want. Well, within reason and scope, but you can send it wherever. And what the language will do, the garbage collector, is it'll clean up all that memory for you. But the downside of this is it'll make your program slower. With Rust and its ownership and borrowing, it's going to make your program a lot faster. Now, you're not going to see a lot of differences within a small program, but if you have a very, very large program, like production scale level for some business, it's going to matter. So that's ownership and borrowing. So now let's go and take a look at string slices. Alright, that's going to be it for ownership and borrowing. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, please leave a like. Let me know that you did. And make sure you guys subscribe if you enjoy these Rust videos. I plan on making a whole series of these Rust videos so we can all learn together, as well as other topics related to software engineering and web development. And I'll see you guys in the next video.